Okay, so I buy pork butts with the blade out. Bone in adds flavor. Without the bone, where it's cut open like this, you can actually apply your rub to the inside of your pork butt, which we do liberally. Once you've got that rubbed in there, you're just going to fold your pork butt back up where the bone was and continue to apply your rub. That's going to give you some flavor on the inside. Now again, like we did with the brisket, we brine this overnight, 1.5 gallons of water, 1.5 cups of salt, and this time I threw in a couple cups of brown sugar and some apple cider vinegar just to change the flavor profile a little bit for the pork. I've got about a 10-pound pork butt and about a 9-pound pork butt. They're going to go in my electric smoker this time, not my pellet smoker. And we're going to go probably all day, probably a good 10 hours. It's a cold morning, sun's coming up, and so my smoker's already preheating. I'm going to finish getting this rub. On a couple comments on our last video on the brisket, people asked for my recipe for my rub. I'm not going to give that to you, but I will tell you what's in it. We start with a base of smoked paprika. There's dry mustard, onion powder, garlic powder, ground basil, red pepper, chili pepper, black pepper, and salt. We've adapted that a little bit. Depending on what I'm doing, I might add some brown sugar into that mix and maybe increase or decrease the salt altogether. Now because these have been brined, there's very little salt in the rub because they were brined for about 15 hours, and so the salt is already in there. So there's very little salt in the rub. If you watched our brisket video, you heard me say at the end that I almost dropped the brisket, but I caught it. This is why. I had carpal tunnel surgery the morning after we did the brisket, and so I'm a one-hand barbecue man these days. So we're about ready here. The smoker's warmed up. The rub is soaking in, and I'll see you out at the smoker. Hey, here we are. We're about 5 hours into it. And you can see my smoke is really going well, and the meat's looking good. Drip pan's starting to fill up a little bit, but we want to make sure that things stay real moist. So we're going to use a little bit of mop on here. Forgot a towel to pull this out, but we're just going to mop these real quick with some 50/50 apple cider vinegar with apple cider, and then I've put a little bit of the dry rub in there as well. And we just want this to stay good and moist, so we're just going to mop these, get some moisture in there, and I'm actually going to get some of this mop in the drip pan to create a little steam, a little moisture. You can see as they've cooked, they've kind of unrolled a little bit where the bone used to be. But we're looking really good. 5 hours in. Probably got another 3 or 4 before they're ready, and before we're going to wrap them up in foil. But we're looking really good. It smells wonderful. So we've been going about 7 hours at about 240, 250. So let's take a look at what we got. Oh yeah, baby. We're coming right along. So we've been in about 8 hours right now. We're about 180 degrees internal temperature. We're going to take them out, wrap them in foil, and finish them off in the smoker wrapped up. That does a couple things for us. It allows us to raise the internal temperature, also keeps them nice and moist, and when they come out, we'll let them sit for about half an hour, and they're just going to shred, come right apart. It's going to be great. And next time you see me, we're going to be unwrapping these. They're going to be about 185, 190 degrees, ready to shred, and we're just going to be able to pull them apart with a fork. It's going to be so moist and tasty you won't believe it, and you'll wish you were here. So here we are about 10 hours later, started in the dark, finished in the dark. These have been wrapped up for about 25 minutes, right out of the smoker, and we're ready to do some pole. So they were wrapped up in foil in the smoker for about an hour and a half and just continued to cook. They sat here and rested for about 20-25 minutes, and now it's time to pull them. Boy, they are just perfect. Look at that. In fact, just to show you something, a lot of folks chop their pulled pork, but flat of the knife, we're just pulling this. Oh man, that's some good eating there. So once you get it mashed out and it's just coming apart, take a couple of forks, kind of hard with a gimpy hand, but you just want to pull that. Look at that. Boy. Okay, I just want to show you something really quick. We got our pulled pork. Normally I would pull it into a 9x13 pan and then put some of the mop back on it and mix it up, but this is just so moist and tender. Look at that. So this is real pulled pork sandwich here. I like mine with a little bit of my spicy creamy coleslaw. Let's take a little serving of that, put it right on top of that pulled pork. Then got to put a little Big Stick barbecue on it. Oh yeah, I made this yesterday. Oh, look at that, nice and thick, spicy, sweet and tangy. Hey, now that's some living there. And we'll see you next week. We're doing some ribs next weekend. So we got my children coming over for dinner tonight, and who knows who will be here for dinner next week. Tune in for some authentic smoked ribs next week. Thanks a lot. See you at dinner. You can see we've got this out. We're just going to wrap it up with the foil. Get it nice.